How many losing trades does it take to lose your entire account? At Ground Truth, we take the money claims your feed serves you and we test them on real data. Today's tape, an investor named Chris Camillo on a podcast called The Iced Coffee Hour. Self-taught, an 8-figure account he built himself, and famous for doing the homework. 50 to 100 hours of research per trade by his own account, then publishing the reasoning so anyone can poke holes in it. On that tape, he describes losing about 40% of the account, tens of millions of dollars, in 2 weeks, then making roughly 10 million back in a single day. His ruin math, in his own words, quote, "I would have to make 6 in a row to lose all my money." Our crash tests say 1, and before either number means anything, the word itself. Ruin is a trader's word, and it does not mean a bad month. It means the account is destroyed, losses so deep, or a forced sale so final that you cannot realistically earn your way back. That is the thing his 6 is pricing. We ran 80 simulated margin accounts that borrow to invest, through the crashes of the last 7 years, and we published the grid 4 days before this tape reached us so that you can price a risk before you carry it. 1 drawdown is enough if the things you own break together. Same leverage, same dates. One account ended up 21.5%, the other was sold out by its broker at minus 57.9. The leverage did not decide that. What the accounts owned did. One more strange fact, and then we begin, he sells nothing. No course, no newsletter, no sponsorships. That one fact shapes how this episode treats him. And here is why this tape is worth your next 10 minutes. The 6 in a row model is not unique to him. If you have ever told yourself it would take a long streak of bad luck to wipe out your account, you are running the same math. His model is your model, and today it gets priced. 3 questions. Keep them. 1. What actually took his account down 40%, the stocks or the selling? 2. Does 6 losses in a row survive contact with a real crash? 3. What decides how much leverage an account can survive, and can that number be known in advance? This is the audit of the 6 losses ruin model. This is Ground Truth. Quick note before we start. This is education and entertainment, and it is not financial advice. We test ideas here. We do not tell you what to do with your own money. The story first, because the story is where his own ruin math comes apart, in his own words. This is a tape review, not a takedown. There is nothing here to buy, so there is nothing here to protect you from. What the tape offers instead is rarer, an experienced investor describing, honestly, the closest he has come to ruin. Early this year, the stocks he owned fell about 40% in a couple of weeks. His read, on camera, the businesses had not changed. What changed was the selling. He is describing something with a name, forced liquidation. That is, selling that happens because a lender wants its money back, not because anyone changed their mind about the stock. A margin loan gets called, the broker sells the collateral, the stocks pledged against the loan, and the sale pushes the price down, which calls the next loan. The seller does not care what the company is worth. The seller cares what the loan is worth. And here is the first thing we grant, in full. His diagnosis was right. Our own lab measured exactly that mechanism, on real prices, 4 days before we ever heard this tape. Forced selling drives prices below anything the business did, and when the selling stops, it reverts. He read that correctly, in real time, and he says plainly he had no timing edge on when it would turn. So the lesson is conviction. The man held through a 40% drawdown, doubled down, and made $10 million in 1 day. That is why you concentrate in what you know. That is why you never sell. The tape itself disagrees with that, in one sentence, and it is next. First, 3 more facts, so the picture is fair. He was early, by his own account, 7 figures of options expired worthless, the Wednesday before the turn came. An option is a contract that pays off only if the stock moves your way in time, run out of time, and it is worthless paper. The $10 million day was Amazon call options bought into earnings, the day the company reports its results. A couple $1 million of contracts expiring the next day, and none of it is audited. Every number in this act is his own report, and we will treat it that way, as testimony, not as a measurement. Now, the 2 sentences this episode is actually about, both are his. They cannot both be describing the same account. Sentence 1. He is explaining why his stocks fell 40%, why his account, a $40 billion fund, and an entire country's retail investors trading on borrowed money all got hit at once. Listen to what he is actually saying. Quote, basically all the Leopold stuff is all the South Korea stuff, which is all the Chris Camillo stuff, So me, Leopold, and South Korea were all getting crushed at the same time. That sentence has a name too. He is describing a factor, one underlying driver that many positions secretly share. His stocks, the fund's stocks, and the stocks a wave of levered money in South Korea had piled into, underneath the tickers, they were the same trade. When the levered money got called, everything attached to it went down together. Not 6 things happening. One thing wearing 6 tickers. He said that. On camera, it is a precise one-sentence description of factor concentration, a man naming his own storm. Sentence 2, the one we opened the episode on. Later in the same interview, he prices his risk of ruin, how a string of his high-conviction trades could actually end him. Quote, I would have to make 6 in a row to lose all my money. Stop the tape. Listen to the arithmetic inside that sentence. 6 in a row is a streak. A streak is only unlikely if each loss is its own independent event, a separate storm on a separate day, hitting a separate part of the harbor. Flip a fair coin 6 times, all 6 against you, about 1.5%. That is the feeling the sentence sells, ruin so unlucky it is nearly impossible. But sentence 1 just told you the bets are not separate. His words, not ours, all of it was the same stuff, all getting crushed at the same time. When positions share a factor, they do not take turns failing. The 6 losses do not arrive as a streak across years. They arrive in the same 2 weeks as one storm, which is precisely the event he had just finished describing. You might be thinking, hold on, maybe both survive. Maybe the 6 in a row math is about 6 different theses, spread across years, each one a fresh roll. That would be fair, if the account were built that way. But the drawdown on this very tape is the counterexample. It was not one thesis failing, it was everything he owned moving as one. The streak math assumes an independence that the man's own account, in his own words, did not have. 2 sentences, 1 interview. The first says, my bets break together. The second prices ruin, as if they break alone. The episode does not need to assert anything about him, we just needed you to hear both. Question 1 is answered. The selling, not the stocks. Now let's find out what the gap between those 2 sentences costs in dollars on real prices. Here is the part where most channels would build a simulation to order, design the test after hearing the story, aim it at the conclusion, fire. We did not have to, the test already existed. We published it 4 days earlier, before we knew this tape existed, with the pass-fail lines registered in advance. The receipt was already on the shelf. The setup, once, plainly. 80 account and crash combinations, 20 constructions, run through 4 windows of real prices, survivorship-free, delisted stocks included, so the graveyard counts. Every account borrows to invest, and then just holds. No trading skill, no timing, nothing but the construction. And the broker watches one line, the maintenance margin, the minimum equity your lender requires before it sells you out. The receipts stay on screen, the full grid is in our margin episode, linked below. One piece of arithmetic before the reveal, because it is the whole machine, and it is one line. Borrow dollar for dollar, $4, 2-to-1 leverage, with a 30% maintenance requirement, and the margin call arrives when your stocks are down, 28.6%. That is not a simulation. That is algebra, a trapdoor set in advance, and that is the kind case. In the full simulation, the interest on the loan pulls the real call slightly earlier than the clean algebra says. At lighter ratios, the trapdoor just sits deeper. 1.33 puts it at minus 64.6. Call that the call line. Your broker computes it every night. Ask yourself when you last did. Now the pair of accounts this episode turns on. Both entered the 2022 crash at the same 2-to-1 leverage on the same dates. The only difference is what they owned. Account 1 held 5 AI semiconductor names. 1 factor, 5 tickers, a concentrated book. Book is the trader's word for everything an account owns, and this book is the exact shape sentence 1 described. Its joint drawdown, the fall of the whole book at once, measured from its peak, crashed through minus 28.6. The broker sold it out near the bottom, and it finished at minus 57.9%. Liquidated, April 27, 2022. Account 2 held 10 names across roughly 8 sectors. Same leverage, same dates. Its parts did not all fall in the same storm. The joint drawdown never reached the call line, and it finished up 21.5%. Held the whole way. Minus 57.9 against plus 21.5. Same leverage, same dates. Those 2 numbers are the episode. The ratio did not pick the loser. The factor did. And now, the number that runs in his favor. Because this grid does not care whose story it helps. At 1-to-1, the leverage he says he was carrying in one of two conflicting sentences on the tape. That same concentrated semiconductor book survived the same crash and finished up 25%. The drawdown fully recovered for anyone who could not be forced to sell. Let that be exact. That account is our grid's concentrated book, not his actual holdings. Nobody outside his broker has seen those. But the shape of the finding transfers. He was not saved by conviction, and he was not saved by being right about the reversal. Remember, he was early, and 7 figures of options died waiting. He was saved by construction. And notice, this does not hand the argument back to the ratio. At the same ratio, the factor still picked the loser. What 1-to-1 changes is simpler. No loan, so no call line, so no trapdoor to spring. A book that cannot be margin called gets to be early and still collect. Fine, then the answer is easy. Use less leverage, lower ratio, safer account. Everybody knows that. You probably believe the same thing. Lower ratio, safer account. Here is the result from the same grid that breaks it. The grid also ran one single stock, one chip company, Nvidia, at 2-to-1. The broker sold that account out in January of 2022, down 60%. Now the cautious version, the same stock at 1.33, the ratio with the trapdoor all the way down at minus 64.6. It took longer to get there. It got there. The call came 8 months later, in September, and the account finished at minus 85.4%, worse than the 2-to-1 account. The later call is the deeper cut. The smaller loan let the account ride further down before the forced sale, and the forced sale is the thing that converts a drawdown into a permanent loss. One honesty about this grid, and it cuts against us, so listen out for it. We registered predictions for every account before running it, and one of them missed. A Micron account at 1.5 survived a window we predicted it would not, by 2.1 percentage points of drawdown. 69 of 80 cells survived overall. Our headline pair is the contrast, not the whole board. The full scorecard, misses included, is public in the margin episode. That is 7 claims off the tape so far, and 3 of them priced, and it leaves the ratio unable to decide who survives, which means his 6 losses number is built on the wrong variable. Let's rebuild it. If your positions genuinely fail independently, 6 separate theses, 6 separate storms, then ruin really is a streak, and a streak of 6 is vanishingly rare. The math he is running is not wrong math. It is the right math for a different account than the one the tape describes. But if your positions share one factor, the count collapses. 6 bets that break together are not 6 chances to stomp. They are 1 bet at 6 times the size, and your real ruin number is 1 correlated drawdown. Correlated is the market's word for break together that reaches deeper than your call line. Sentence 1 told you which account he had. April 2022 on our grid told you what that kind of account does. The 5-ticker book did not lose 5 arguments. It lost 1 once, and the broker graded it. Now the tape hands us a complication, and we are going to play it straight instead of resolving it. Early in the interview, he says he was, quote, like 1x levered. Later, describing the same weeks, quote, my account was fully levered. So I basically had to sell stock to make this happen. Both sentences are on the tape, and we are not going to pick one for him. What we can do is price both ends. At 1-to-1, our concentrated book survives everything on the board. At 2-to-1, it dies in April. The distance between his 2 sentences is the distance between plus 25 and minus 57.9. Which end he actually lived at goes in the unknowable pile. One more number from the tape, and then the pile. He says he was, quote, like 80% confident in the Amazon trade, a 20% chance of it going wrong. Stated once after the win with no record behind it. Here is the problem with that class of number. A confidence stated after the outcome is not a probability. It is a memory. For it to be a measurement, there would have to be a list. Every trade, the confidence written down before, the outcome after, the hit rate checked. That check has a name, calibration, whether your 80% come true 80% of the time. He has not published one, so nobody can check whether his 80% means 80%, including him. So, he's just making the number up? No, and that is the point. Nobody can check it. Not you, not us, not him. An unpublished record does not make a man a liar. It makes his numbers unpriceable, and to his credit, he says a version of this himself. Asked about his 17 years of returns, quote, of course survivorship bias is a portion of those. Survivorship bias? Counting only the winners who survived to be counted. He concedes on camera what most of this genre spends its whole runtime denying. So here is the question underneath all of it. The $10 million day. Was it edge or was it weather? Edge meaning a real, repeatable advantage, not luck. And the honest answer is, this is the one question the lab cannot touch. 50 to 100 hours of research per trade, primary sources, his rule of spending more time on the other side of his own thesis than on his side of it. All of that is real discipline, and none of it is a published, auditable record. The most rigorous thing we can say is exactly that, not fake, not proven, unpriced. 9 claims off the tape, 5 priced, 3 we could not price, and everything downstream of them. The wager we registered at the top, question 2, does 6 losses in a row survive contact with a real crash? Grade it with me, in classes. Measured, our grid, registered in advance, the same 2-to-1 that held on 10 names was liquidated on 5, and the forced sale is what makes a drawdown permanent. Reported, his 40%, his 10 million, his 6 in a row, his 80%. Testimony attributed, unaudited. Inferred, that his book, the funds book, and the Korean flow shared one factor. Inferred from the strongest available source, his own sentence. Unknowable, his actual leverage, his calibration, his edge, and therefore his actual risk of ruin. The episode makes no estimate of any of them. That is not a gap in our test. That is the finding. An account with no published record cannot be checked by anyone, including its owner. So the verdict, in one breath. The 6 losses ruin model dies, not because 6 is the wrong count, but because counting is the wrong operation when the bets share a storm. That is question 2, graded. And question 3, what decides survival, and can the number be known in advance? Take the worst fall everything you own can take together, your book's joint drawdown. If that fall stays inside the call line your ratio sets, you survive. That is a property of what you own, not of how sure you are. Run the streak math if your positions genuinely fail alone. If diversified means 5 names that break on the same news, your number is not 6, it is 1. How many losing trades does it take to lose your entire account? If that question made you count trades, the model got you 2. It is not a count. Before you count how many losses ruin would take, ask how many of your positions are standing in the same storm. Call that the same storm test. It is the whole episode in 4 words, count factors, not losses. Why does the streak version feel so safe? Because it feels conservative. It names ruin out loud and prices it at nearly impossible, which reads as humility. The independence is smuggled in underneath, and nobody audits the assumptions of a number that sounds pessimistic. That is the mechanism of belief, and it is why this exact math is on your feed right now with different numbers on it, usually from accounts with a funnel behind them, a course, a newsletter, something the number is selling. This one had nothing to sell you. And the boring root cause, nothing in this episode was decided in the crash. The call line, the factor count, the ratio, every one of them was set before the first trade was placed. The number could be known in advance because it was already written down. The account's fate was in the paperwork. As boring as that is, what we keep from the wreckage, because on this tape, it is a lot. The man diagnosed forced liquidation correctly, in real time, without a timing edge. He researches the other side of his own trades harder than his own side. He exits against himself when the facts turn. He concedes survivorship bias in his own track record, on camera, when asked directly. And when his conviction is low, he does something worth copying. He trades at 2 to 3% of his normal size and says it captures, quote, 90 to 95% of the emotional payoff. That last one is a risk tool disguised as a confession, and it costs nothing to learn from. Our verdict grades a model he stated in one sentence on one podcast. His actual practice, on the same tape, is closer to our side of the argument than the sentences. Both of those are true, and we are comfortable leaving them side by side. The reopen bounty, and it is live. 2 ways to change our verdict on camera. 1. A verified third-party audited record of stated confidence against outcomes across many trades showing that 80% means 80%. A winning trade is not that record, neither is a 17-year return. 2. A borrowed and held account, everything it owns on one factor that passes the same storm test where our books failed it, surviving both of our bear windows at 1.5 times leverage or higher. The machine will run it. Until then, that is where the record stands. 6 bets that break together are 1 bet. He said it himself, 2 hours before pricing them as 6. This is ground truth. The machine is always hungry.